Hi everyone, my name's Gurbaj Power and I'm part of the YSPN External Affairs team. I've got a big smile on my face today. There's a very good reason for that, but let me get into that in a second. So, just a bit of background. I spent a bit of time working in QBE. I'm a former QBE employee. And some time ago, I was sitting there at my desk and I received an email. It was announcing our new group executive. So for those of you who don't know, QBE is an ASX 20 company, one of the largest companies in Australia, and it's a global top 20 insurer. So you get these standard emails, there's been restructure changes, and I'm expecting to open up and see a few names that I'm familiar with. And the email comes through, and I look at the email. Group CFO, Inder Singh. Australia, New Zealand, Pacific CEO, Mr. Vivek Bhatia. Group Chief Risk Officer, Mr. Peter Garewal. There are 11 group executives in QBE, 3 of them are Punjabi. That was a moment for us in history. And the reason for the smile on my face is that when I was sitting there, all I could do was think about it and get excited and message all my friends about it. But today, I can get them all here on stage, and 2 of those people are actually in this room and are going to join me on stage soon. So let's kick off with Inder. So Inder, he's spent most of his career in investment banking. He's ex-Deutsche Bank, ex-UBS. He's been at Aviva, and in 2015, he joined QBE in corporate development. Since then, he's held very senior roles, head of corporate development, CFO for an Australian New Zealand business, and recently, group CFO for QBE. This is group CFO for an organisation that operates in over 40 countries. Vivek Bhatia. So, for those of you that know insurance, Vivek is widely recognised as one of the most influential executives in the insurance industry in Australia. He is the ex-CEO of iCare, ex-CEO of Wesfarmers Insurance, and he's also an ex-partner at McKinsey, leading their transformation and restructuring practice in APAC. Can I please get everyone to put their hands together and welcome Vivek and Inder to the stage. Firstly, thank you so much on behalf of all of us. Myself individually, YSPN as an organisation, and our community who's all here today. 1, to understand and get inspired, and 2, to thank you and celebrate the success we've had as a community because of people like you.
Great, and sorry for missing the memo on the dress code, Gurbaj, so you're going to have to bear with us.
I think I missed the memo. I think I was supposed to wear a pink shirt. Just remember, if you want to be a C-suite, you got to wear a pink shirt.
You should read your emails first thing in the morning, that's what we do.
Okay, so having you both here today is testament to the fact that we're doing something right as a community. Case in point, Vivek, 3 out of 11 executives at QBE are Punjabi. 1, I wanted to ask your thoughts on a reflection on how we think we got there, and 2, how do you think we continue that momentum?
I didn't recruit any of the 3, so I can't really take any big credit for that. But I think, there was a great conversation, and it was fantastic to hear everybody speak on the panel before, and I certainly learned a lot, from all the experiences that were shared. But it is about making sure that we put our best foot forward, and may the best person be in the role. And when the best person is in the role, you obviously need to encounter different conscious, unconscious biases that may come by the recruitment people. So whether they are chairmen of boards in these cases or global CEOs. But at the end of the day, if you are doing what you're supposed to do and you are presenting your best self forward, then those opportunities do come. And you have to believe in it. If you don't believe in it, then your own mind will stop you from going forward and putting your best foot forward. I think it's great to hear Saurav talk about his experience, but also more importantly, how you learn from it and you know that you control the controllables. There is it's one of the quotes that I hold, the closest is the biggest teaching from Guru Nanak Dev Ji, which is about conquering the mind is conquering the world. And if you conquer the mind, then you definitely conquer the world. But if you let your mind play games with you, then you're always going to make sure that you are second-guessing your own self. And when you second-guess your own self, you don't win.
And I think I would just add, just in terms of the environment, it was good to hear the conversation earlier about biases, etc. When I moved to Australia, in 1989. I grew up in Melbourne, and looking back, over those years, every 5 or 6 years, you've seen a change in the environment, right? Like I was in the UK for 10 years, and coming back in 2015, Sydney feels very different to what it did 10 years ago before I left. I go back to Melbourne now, and it feels very different. The diversity is definitely increasing. Yes, there might be some barriers, and there might still be more is needed in terms of pushing for that. But you look at Macquarie Bank, and one of the finest companies in Australia now, run by Shamara, who's of ethnic background. She's female, and she's running one of the finest investment banks. Right, it's seen as a bastion of the white male, and she's running it. So it's the environment is changing, and it's changing, and therefore thinking about what you can control and what you can't control is important, but also you've got more opportunities now and going forward than we did 25 years ago as a community.
I also feel, just to add on that, is that one of the key elements that we always feel is that you can be what you can see. But if you don't see those people around, then you sometimes second guess yourself in terms of thinking, is that really possible? Can us be on those lists? Can we be on the boards? Can we run these large organizations? And when you don't see examples of those, then you're not sure whether that is possible. And I think, if you look at, even going back 10 years ago, in 2008, I think nobody believed that it could be a black US president. But once Barack Obama took that place, I think everybody believes that is possible. And so there is a huge amount of catalyst movements that happen when individuals take roles in senior organizations, and then people believe in their ability to do the same.
Yeah, exactly, and pretty much exactly leading the point on Barack Obama. For us as a community, when you guys were coming through the ranks, back then we didn't have the privilege to have the people like you to look at and inspire and believe that it is possible. So it's great to see that today, for all of us, you've set a precedent for us to understand where that can go. But reflecting back on your time, when you would have been in the stages that we're at, what were some of the reflections on that?
Look, I think part of it for me was finding role models generally in the business community that you looked up to, and in more recent years we've had some really fine examples in the US. So Ajay Banga, who runs MasterCard, Satya Nadella, who runs Microsoft. I spend a lot of time listening to what inspires them, their leadership styles, and it's just wonderful to hear how do they translate the external into what they then focus on. So I think having role models is really important, whether it's within your particular industry or other industries, or more from a sort of a personal ambitions point of view. So I think that's been really the guiding force for me at different stages of my life. I've always had one or two role models that I've always listened to, I've always thought about, and that's really inspired me to continue to learn and extend myself.
I think that I'm absolutely in the same boat as Inder. So I came to Australia 20 years ago, and when I came in, and it was very difficult to see any non-Caucasian individuals in the local environment who were blazing the trail. And even though I've not had the opportunity to meet Sarv, but I'd heard about him so much before, because he was the kind of only bastion of somebody who had actually made it into the senior echelons of corporate Australia. And you look at those individuals and you think, well, it is possible. It is possible. So you have to make sure that you keep working hard. And I have a strong belief that one of the things that our faith teaches us is perseverance and hard work. And not relying only on talent and what's on the out. But bringing your inner humility, compassion, your love, your respect to what you do on a day-to-day basis. And if you do that every day, then you stand out. And that's what you have to try and resist the temptation to conform. Because that is so easy to do. It is so easy to come into the organizations and then try to do what everybody else does, because then you fit in. You need to have the belief to stand out. And that's what we need to do.
Brilliant. So that really echoes with me, because I guess an example for me was at my time at QBE, when you guys came on board, the new group executive, there was a marked change in the organisation around our approach to diversity. Particularly around the organisation, there's a strong reputation around how you guys approach it and how QBE is known in the market for it. What are your thoughts on diversity? And two, why do you think it's so important in the way you do your business?
So look, I think diversity is more than just nice to have. I mean, it's from a commercial point of view, it's a business essential, right? So having strong diversity of thought around the table, challenging others, so having people from different backgrounds, be it ethnic backgrounds, be it sexual orientation, is really critical. So I kind of see it as, obviously in my role as CFO, I've got to think about things from a business case perspective, and I think there's such a strong case for diversity, putting aside everything else. So I think for us, we have to be activist around diversity, and that involves taking risks on people. So what we've been trying to do, particularly on the gender front, which has been a real focus for us, women are chronically underrepresented in our industry, chronically underrepresented in senior positions in our company. So we've talked a bit about this, and it's important for us to take risks and move people into roles, because often, especially on the gender front, I think women are sometimes hesitant to take the risks that an equivalent male might do. They sort of almost need a little bit of that extra encouragement to say, hey, listen, we think you can do this role, and that little bit of extra encouragement, when given and when the opportunities opened up, people flourish, right? And we've seen this over time, and I think so. It's really incumbent on us to be activists around diversity.
I think just to echo the point, it's well documented that if men are kind of 70% sure they can do the job, they put up their hand, and women will wait till they're 100% sure till they put up their hand. And so it is incumbent on everybody to ensure that we do give level playing field, and we do give the encouragement that is required for people to come and step up the roles. We also know that when they do that, they do a better job, right? And so it is definitely one of the really important aspects of ensuring that you do that. But to Linda's point on diversity of thought, I think what we try to do with symbols of diversity, whether it is ethnicity, cultural background, sexual orientation, gender, it is basically the core element of that is diversity of thought. And so if you can bring diversity of thought into boardroom tables, into executive rooms, then that starts to shape organizations differently to the way they have in the past. And then you look at the big organizations in the country, you look at Parliament, the people who decide the policy for the country, and you look at people making the decisions around the policy table. And there is no diversity of thought there. And then sometimes you wonder why people are not thinking through some of those ramifications of can you serve the community which looks so different to the people who are deciding how to serve them. And if you can't, then we need to make sure that there is some positive change that needs to happen. And it needs to be affirmative. It just can't be, well, we will wait for generations for that to happen, and in 50 years' time, Australia will look different. Well, I don't think we should accept that. I think we should be really moving towards affirmative change on this aspect.
Just one more point on the when you look at the way we're seeing technology advances happening and the industries as a whole changing, and how people play in different spaces changing significantly. We, as an organization, if we stand still and we don't change and we don't challenge the way we do things or how we do them or what sort of people we have doing them, we will not exist in 10, 15, 20 years' time. So, we really get the fact that we need to have different people challenging, around the table around, how do we change and evolve, and how do we, build a company for the future. And so diversity is just a big, big part of that, right? Because the same people who look the same, taking the same decisions in the same way, will just mean that we'll go out of existence as a company, or we'll fail as an economy to really take advantage of the wonderful opportunities that these advances are providing us.
And how is QBE going about that? What are some of the practical ways that you as leadership at the top are making sure diversity is recognised and basically highlighted through to the world?
Look, I think QBE's been around for 130 years. We mainly focus on commercial insurance. It is, it's been a tough industry in terms of, the real lack of diversity that we started with, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So it remains, hard yards, and it's about being activist about it, but also, it's about making examples of small successes when you get them, and being persistent about it. So for us, it's front and center of the agenda. We are activist around it, and we're going to celebrate successes as we go along. I think in simple terms is the philosophy.
And to the extent, we reintroduced the QBE DNA last year, and one of the core elements of that is hashtag Mix It Up, and that is all about really encouraging, in an affirmative way for us to bring diversity and inclusion into what we do on a day-to-day basis. Because I've always have a strong belief that diversity is kind of your starting ticket, right? And then it is all about inclusion. And if you don't get inclusivity right, then diversity is only for name. It's a real namesake symbol as opposed to it adds value. And I always say that, which is completely copied from somebody who I thought was great, but diversity is like being invited to a party, whereas inclusion is being asked to dance. So if you're invited to a party and you're not asked to dance, then while it looks good from the outside, you still don't feel part of the party.
And it was interesting the point that was made in the earlier panel about if you're not at the pub or you're not at the boozy lunch, or so the work culture historically has been somewhat prohibitive, right? But that's changing even in our industry, which if you go to London and the broking market and where commercial insurance started was very much business gets done in the pub, and if you don't drink, you're not at the table and you're not part of the deal. Now it's very different, right? The industry is becoming more data-driven. It's more analytics. You need smarter, better people, and it's a real fight for talent. And so that environment for us is also changing, and what it takes to win is also changing, and that really plays nicely into creating more opportunities for people from different backgrounds.
So talking about industry, so we're all in financial services. Recent times, financial services as an industry has copped a bad rap. There's a whole lot of discussions around ethical conduct, Royal Commission and all that going on. Usually goes right to the top, and it's usually the leadership that's usually blamed. When it comes to the going as future financial services leaders and current financial services leaders, how do you go about approaching that, and how does your culture, your heritage, your religious values come into play when you make some of those decisions?
Yeah, good set of questions. So look, I when I first started my corporate career at Deutsche Bank, I was covering financial institutions, and so for the last 20 years, I've been in and around financial institutions, whether it's in this country or in the UK. And my philosophical kind of view on this is, I think the industry as a whole lost its way a bit. What started as an industry built around building societies where, you're really part of the community, people got together to help each other out, to build for their future, just evolved into an industry that lost touch with the community, built a lot of hubris around success, some of the industry dynamics. So you had an environment for a long time where the monetary policy was very facilitative. So you made a lot of money just turning up to work every day, and everyone thought they were actually doing a great job. And so the industry developed a huge amount of hubris around it, and that was consistent here, was in the UK, was in the US. And I think the financial crisis, has brought a bit of a day of reckoning, and I think it's causing everybody to think that actually we need to go back to our roots a bit, and be really part of the community, and think about the role that financial services plays. So in insurance, really, what we do in simple terms is everybody pools their premiums. So when there's an event, the people that are impacted by that event, we can use those premiums to help those people rebuild their lives, right? In simple terms. So that's a kind of at the heart of what we do is a very strong social purpose. We have lost that as an industry over time, and the focus on that over time. So, for me, when I think about how does that, we need to really bring that front and center and back to kind of how we do business. Secondly, in terms of how does our culture and our values, for me, one of the big things about Sikhism, about being Punjabi, is a real sense of humility, right? And I think when I think about what went wrong in the industry a bit to some extent, it was just a lack of humility, right? Just a lack of humility, which is thinking about your ability to learn and adapt to the changing environment, which just didn't happen. So those are my kind of reflections on the fact that we've got a lot of work to do to reset both how we do business, but also the community's understanding and our engagement with the community around that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think clearly the last 12 months have been tough for the financial services sector in terms of public scrutiny, in terms of public hangings, in terms of trial, which to some extent has been quite one-sided, but at the same time can understand the genesis of why it came up in the first place. When you reflect on financial services, it is one of those core pillars of the society because it fuels the economy. And the role of financial services is to make sure that we can enable society to be better than it was yesterday. And most of the work that happens around the financial services is with that intent. So when you look at the people who work in the financial service industry, and that is in Australia, probably direct and indirect would be close to 500,000 people. They don't come to work to try and fleece the community. Or they don't try to come into work to say, well, I am going to get a bonus because I don't want to pay a claim. Or I want to drive somebody out of their home because they haven't paid their home loan and we don't understand their hardship. But the way it has traversed over a period of time, as Indra rightly pointed out, is we lost our way. And all of a sudden, profits probably became the primary objective, now driven by society, driven by shareholder activation. And the balance between commercial reality and social purpose was somewhere lost. And I think this is a great reminder. I think GFC was a great reminder in 2008. This is again a great reminder that the industry does operate on a social license. And I know that word has been bandied around quite a bit, but it does. And we do need to make sure that we get up in the morning and we have that in front and center of our minds. It doesn't mean that we don't make profit or profit is bad. Because if organizations don't make profit, then our superannuations don't grow, right? And then we retire and then we depend on government money to be able to fund our retirement. And that's not okay either. But there is a great balance to be made between what is a commercial imperative and what's a social purpose. And it is not an either or. Organizations have started to think about it as an either or. Well, I can do this, and then on the side, to look good, I will do these 4 things. But we have to make sure that it is part and parcel of what we do as opposed to on the side. And that's how I define seva. Seva is not what you do on the side. It's what you do on a day-to-day basis, right? And I think that we are well placed through the values that we have been fortunate to be given as our faith, that humility, truth, compassion is part and parcel of who we are. And we can never forget that.
So just you touched on there on the social license, ignoring the concept of profit, talking around social license and the fact that you're providing a service to people, you're contributing to society. What does the concept of seva mean to you guys on a day-to-day basis in your professional and personal life?
I think for me, seva is what you do on a day-to-day basis. It is while you work. It's while you raise your family. It's how you are there for your friends, for your parents. It is really important that on a day-to-day basis you are trying to do something what is possible to make tomorrow better than what yesterday was, and that is broader than just people around you, but it starts with people around you. You can't be doing charity and then, being a bit of an idiot with people around you. Right? So it starts, they say charity starts at home. It really does. Right? And you have to be true to yourself around the people who have raised you, who have been there and been your well-wishers all your life. And then it also extends to everybody that surrounds you, whether it is at work, in the environment. You touch so many lives in every day. If you can improve their lives by being kind, being compassionate, being there for them to listen to what it is, and in some meaningful way trying to help them, then I believe that you are actually going a long way.
Yeah, look, I think I'd agree with that, and I was listening carefully to what Angad said earlier as well, that we can all really aspire to do more seva. I mean, one of the things I think when you live in a Western society and you go back to India and you go back to your Pind and you have a look at how everybody's going about their way, and there's a sense of community that we don't have in the West, and we've tried to recreate it in pockets, but I think that's really important. And at the heart of all of that is being selfless and being thoughtful about how you're dealing with others, and that to me is something I really miss. I mean, I only spent a few years of my life growing up in India, but when I go back to Punjab and you go back into your communities, you see that concept very much well and alive, right? How people go about their daily lives, and I think in the broadest sense we don't do enough of that here.
Right. I guess from my perspective, we're in a room here today, and we're with a group of people who normally would never get access to people like you. It's a privilege for us, and it's a seva from you guys to give us your time. But at the same time, now that when I was sitting there and I heard about the news about you guys coming on to QBE Group Executive, for me it was a very exciting time. But this is the first time I've actually interacted with you one-on-one, even though we're in the same organisation. All the people here, they're all young, aspiring leaders, aspiring future leaders, and would hope to emulate some of your success. What would be a single piece of advice you would give the group here that they can take away, that they can apply practically to their daily lives?
Yeah, good question. I might go with two if that's okay, but I think firstly I'd say to everybody who's sort of coming up through the ranks that the opportunity set that you have today is enormous, right? Like in every aspect you look at it, the set of opportunities you have is amazing. On the other side, the number of distractions there are also incredible. So it's about focus is really important, and that's something that I've sort of lived and breathed every day, is having focus and having a set of priorities as you go along. But more importantly, as you think about what's really important as you go through your corporate career, and it's your ability to learn and adapt. So having a learning mindset is really important. And I again, to sort of quote one of my favorite people, Satya Nadella from Microsoft, he's really pushed this idea of the growth mindset, which is to continuous learning every single day and pushing yourself is really important. And the third thing, I'm going to add one more, is taking risks, right? And I think have a view, put your hand up, get your opinion out there, even though there's some risk to that. But think about how you take risks, even the smallest of risks. And if there's a job that may not be perfect, but it gives you something where you think, oh, gee, it feels like a big jump into that pool, go for it, because you'll never regret it. And the worst thing that'll happen is you'll learn something. You'll learn something new, or you'll learn something about yourself. So those are two or three things that, it doesn't matter where you are, and I've sort of seen that over the last 20, 25 years for me have held pretty true.
I think Kana said ditto. I'd also add a couple of things as well. I think for me, one of the things I have always valued is perseverance and resilience. Life is not fair. Don't expect it to be. If you go in with the mindset that it's going to be fair and you're going to get everything that you think you deserve, then be ready for some disappointments. But make sure that you come back fighting. Right? Make sure that when things don't go according to plan, you make sure that you give it another go. And one of the most important things for me is that people rely too much on talent. But talent hardly works when you don't work hard. And so there is never ever a replacement or a substitution for hard work. And so that's hopefully that's what I was taught when I was growing up, and that's what my aspiration is to teach my kids. If there's only one thing I can teach them, because they don't really want to learn anything from me anyway, but if there's only one thing, is that's work hard and make sure that you don't give up. And just one parting thought is don't wait for the destination to have fun. Enjoy the journey and have fun along the way, because things are going to go up and down, but make sure that you're always celebrating your small milestones along that beautiful path that you take that life is.
Inspiring words from, I guess, backed by a lot of experience. Inder, Vivek, thank you so much for taking your time out today to come and join us here tonight. As a community, we have a lot to be proud of, and it's these, when you talk about the small moments, these are the kind of small things that make a community, and we're very proud of your successes in your careers. And we're hoping that in 10 years' time, when you guys come back here, there's another 10 Inders and Vivek sitting in this room. But on behalf of everyone from YSP and from the team, thank you so much for taking the time out today.
Thank you.